Mindfulness is giving yourself permission. It's noticing where you're not taking charge in your life and recognizing you have a choice to do so. You always have a choice. We can forget that. We can get stuck in these uncomfortable situations, patterns, if you will, um, situations that we're suffering in or we're unhappy in, whether that is your work, whether that is your, your career, your relationships. Um, and you always have a choice. You always have a choice to make, to take charge and take responsibility of the role you're playing. And a lot of times, giving yourself permission is saying to stop waiting, right? Because here's my little board again. Because a lot of times we are waiting to get blank before we can do blank, right? Waiting to get a certification before we can start helping people, waiting to get better at a certain skill before we can start selling it. Maybe it is waiting to heal from something before you can start something, right? Whether it's you feel you need to heal a certain part of yourself before you can start helping others heal from it. Um, or maybe it's waiting to be a certain version of yourself before you can do X, Y, and Z. Maybe you think you have to be a certain version of yourself, whether that is a certain level financially, a certain level situationally, where you live, what house you live in, even if you have a house, if you rent, if you buy, all those things before you can start a business, before you can start a family, before you can love yourself, before you can do these things, right? It's like you're waiting to do something before you can do that thing that you really want or desire. And when we get in that mindset, you're just stuck waiting. And I've been there. It took mindfulness practices to recognize where I was unhappy and where I was waiting, right? Where I was in those areas where I was telling myself that I had to wait to be this before I could get to that, right? And a lot of that was always knowing that I wanted to be an artist. And if I could make my life day to day just being in a space where I was creating, I would be happy. And I always like followed that intuition and that guide and was always very stubborn about like wanting to make that work somehow. And for some reason, it was always waiting to get the right job or waiting to get that right timing in my life where I was financially able to do certain things or whatever it was. It was all these things where I just felt like I was waiting for something to happen until I could make that happen, until I could be an artist living my life daily creating, right? And then I had this paradigm shift where I had to give myself permission to start. I had to give myself permission to start and fail, to experiment, to just start. Just start. A lot of times it's just that act of starting that can be really difficult because it's putting yourself out there, it's being vulnerable, it's all these things that are scary, and it's stepping into that fear state. But if you don't do that, you're stuck waiting. And then you spend your whole life waiting. And whatever it is that you feel you're waiting for, right? You just need to start to move towards that. And then once you start, it's crazy how fast things start just speeding up and putting yourself on that timeline and on that path of existence and living in that essence, right? And in that embodiment of whatever it was you were desiring. For me, it was like giving myself permission to start taking a leap into investing in myself. And that was the first time I decided to invest in something where I didn't necessarily have the funds to invest in. I put it on my credit cards, and that was my yoga teacher training. And that changed my life. It took my practice of mindfulness to a whole nother level where it really deepened my understanding, and it made me want to share this even more. It made me go from like it not just only changing my life to me being like, now I have the know-all of not the know-all, but I had this understanding all of a sudden, like I can share this with people. And it was this alignment of like, I guess I do want to share this with people. And I didn't know I wanted to be a teacher necessarily until it was like I was in that stage of my life where I had taken this risk and I leaped into this, and and it was me stopping waiting to have it all figured out. It was telling myself and giving myself permission that I don't have to have it all figured out to start. And really, that came in when I took the leap to start my business. And that was shortly after I was doing my teacher training, of just realizing I wasn't happy in the circumstance I was in. I wasn't happy in the job I was in. I was a barista at this coffee stand that just worked me to the bone, and I just wasn't happy. I got a lot from that, in the sense of meeting people and interacting with people, and this understanding of customer service in a very personable way, and the value of making a difference in someone's life, as small as a cup of coffee can be, and being that barista. And if you have been a barista, I feel like you can resonate with that. But there's something special about a connection, right? And so going through teacher training, and then just realizing that I was in this place where, yeah, I wasn't living the life that I was desiring, and it was because I was making a choice to stay there, and I was not spending the time and effort and energy to figure out how to make my art, or just a way to create every day my everyday, right? And so it was taking that leap to then leave that job where it was a 40-hour a week job where I was getting consistent income, but I was like, nope, I'm going to take the leap. And I did. And it led to some crazy shit that happened after that, but it all led to like where I am now in a very accelerated rate to like push me here, which is probably another story in itself. I don't want to like pop it in now because I feel like I'll drag this on a little too long for what I just wanted to touch on here, and that's giving yourself permission. So I'll touch back on that story because it probably will come up eventually. But it was stopping, stop waiting to have it all figured out, because once I was just like, I'm just going to start taking steps, things started to get clearer. And it was that leap plus just the trust of leaping into the unknown and stepping into the unknown that usually always lands you in a better off place. Like it's better off than you usually have ever imagined. Like when I think about in college having this idea of like, oh, it'd be so cool to have create a business for myself and have it be maybe a storefront where I can sell art, and have maybe studio space where I can, teach, and a gallery space. And I had all this big vision of something I wanted and didn't know how I was going to get there, but I waited for a long time on that vision until I finally was like, okay, I'm going to shift that, and I'm going to give myself permission to step into the unknown without having it all figured out. And when I did that, things just started to become clearer in my understanding of what I wanted that business to be, or what I wanted what my purpose was. I started to come into more alignment with what that actually was, right? You have this vision, and then you start to lean into that, and you can start to uncover the actual purpose that's hiding under there. And it's all about gaining clarity by moving forward, because the more I moved forward, the more I gained clarity. And the more life and the universe kind of pushed the things that weren't for me, like out of my way. And obviously and going back to that thing that I'll probably come back to, there's a lot of like learning and growth from that, but it landed me into this place where I'm like, it's better off than I ever imagined, where I never thought I would end up back in my area where I grew up in, Eastern Washington. But I landed in a place that is so meant for me. And I just feel that, right? I landed in a place where I'm helping run a yoga studio, and I'm helping offer yoga and this foundational practice that really built my mindfulness resources, right? And really launched me into that. And I'm getting to teach trapeze, which I've just fallen in love with. It's a really great addition to a yoga practice. And with that, I'm meeting all these wonderful people and just getting to offer that in a small town. And then from doing that, opened up this space for me to have a storefront in that same building. And I'm kind of creating this vision different from what I maybe thought it was going to be, but it's very much in line with like what that vision was. And it's even better. Like getting to that, it's even better than what I thought it was going to be. And what I envisioned, and so that's all I'm trying to say here in this little lesson of, if you will, that I feel called to share is give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to just start, to stop waiting. If you feel this sense of being stuck or that you aren't filling that calling and you don't even know what that calling is, but you just feel this sense to do more with your life or whatever you're doing, trust. Just take the leap into not waiting, giving yourself permission to change something that doesn't make you happy. Maybe it's a habit, maybe it's quitting a job, and taking that leap into, I don't know where I'm going to get my money from. That's scary, but it's sometimes taking that risk that then opens up a door that, oh my God, it leads into that path that the universe is there to support you with income, with a place to stay, with food to feed you, with support, that just happens to be there when you lean into that trust. But it starts with giving yourself permission. So if that resonates, let me know. And if you don't even really know where to start with giving yourself permission, or if you're struggling with just there and you need the support, the cheerleader to say, hey, you can do this, like, let me know and I can be that cheerleader. We need to be our own cheerleader when it comes down to it, but that can be a practice in itself to get to. And so if you need someone to be that cheerleader until you feel strong enough and feel empowered enough to stand in your own cheerleader, I'm here for you. Honestly, that's why I want to be here doing this work. So let me know, and I look forward to our next time together.